Hello, we're Group 41, and our names are Jonathan Bentata, Carter Sheehan, Jacob Vaggett, and Guilherme Pinto. We're going to be talking about the research called The Phylogenetic Roots of Human Lethal Violence, written by Gomez, Verdu, Gonzalez, Mejias, and Mendes. Before getting into the research, let's define some important terms. So what is phylogenetics? Phylogenetics is the study of evolutionary relationships between species or individuals. Phylogenetic roots is the idea that something is caused, at least in part, by an evolutionary aspect. We have studied phylogenetic relationships extensively during Module 3 through the use of phylogenetic trees. They are useful tools for visualizing evolution. Another important term is lethal violence, which is an act of violence that ultimately leads to the death of one or more individuals involved in the conflict. This study equates the level of lethal violence of a species to the percentage of total deaths due to conspecifics.
The researchers believe that lethal violence in humans has a phylogenetic component. If we focus on primates, we can see that there is a relationship between humans and primates' levels of lethal violence. Could it be possible that this is due to the common ancestry between the two? Does evolution play an important role in human lethal violence?
In order to answer these questions, Gomez et al. Researched the percentage of deaths caused by aggression and violence in different species of animals and compared their results with the actual percentages of death caused by lethal violence in human populations. Gomez searched online using various keywords such as mammal, causes of mortality, conspecific mortality, and conspecific aggression. They organized the articles, experiments, and other research documents on the topic of lethal violence into one large group of documents. According to Gomez, they found information about more than 4 million deaths in the 1,024 mammal species from 137 families and all three main surviving mammalian clades. They also researched for lethal violence in over 600 human populations ranging from the Paleolithic era to the present, and they got information on the phylogenetic relationships between the mammals using the Fritz et al. And Farby and Svenning phylogenies.
So after analyzing all of this data, we created this figure which represents the lethal violence in different species. So here on the y-axis we have the percentage of deaths caused by lethal violence, and on the x-axis we got different groups. So from the right to the left we start really general with all the species with the percentage of deaths caused by lethal violence on other species, then only on Mammalia, then primates and Hominidia. And as you can observe, the percentage on primates is of 2.3% lethal violence, while on Hominidia is 1.8%. And these values are really close to each other, which shows a really strong relationship between these two groups. So this is a strong support for the idea that human lethal violence stems from our close relationship with primates, which relates back to that we have a very similar common ancestry. The researchers also looked if territoriality and social behavior affects the levels of aggression in species. So as it can be seen in this figure, on the y-axis we're representing solitary species versus social species, while on the x-axis we're representing the percentage of deaths due to lethal violence. So as shown, this orange bar right here represents the group of species that are social and territorial, which had the greatest percentage of deaths due to lethal violence of about 0.8%. Humans and primates are included in this specific group of species, and this trend makes sense since social species will have a greater interaction between its population, and being territorial causes them to fight more for specific territories, resulting in more conflicts between the members of the species. Okay, so what are the results? So as seen in the figures before, the percentage of death by lethal violence is found to be 1.8% in the first apes and 2.3% in the closest ancestors to the origins of the primates. The expected phylogenetic level of lethal violence for humans was of 2.2%, and the actual experimental value was of 1.8%.
There is hard evidence that evolution plays a role in the likelihood of human lethal violence. Through our use of phylogenetic trees in class, we learned that two species that are related will have very similar traits because of their shared common ancestor. This supports the idea of humans and primates' levels of lethal violence being phylogenetically related. Furthermore, levels of aggression and lethal violence are coded in our DNA, and those levels will be passed from generation to generation. Although humans have developed ways to cloak many of the primal instincts that we have, we will always be slaves to our underlying genetic makeup.